everybody. I'm Chris.
I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jimmy.
Welcome to Worldview Hunters, episode 54. Hey, everybody, we did it. 54
Wow.
episodes. It's great. Fantastic.
Two past a year.
Feels like just yesterday we started this podcast.
Isn't there Studio 54? Why is that number familiar?
That's Studio 58.
8, 12.
Studio 812, that's what it is. There's a place near us.
That's our zip code. Hey,
Yep.
anyways, today.
What are we talking about?
Well, I'll tell you in a second, but first of all, I hope my pants don't fall off during this episode because my button popped off my shorts, so my belt's real tight. So my face
went
turns
in a
red.
really weird direction. How would your pants just fall off as you're sitting here?
That was a joke, Adrian. That's what we do on this podcast. We make jokes. So sorry about
joke
that.
podcast.
Sorry, yeah. Adrian doesn't get humor. Imagine that. So he grew up with me and still not funny. Anyways, today,
So can you tell your siblings?
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about, is Kung Fu Panda corrupting the youth of today?
Kung Fu Panda is probably the number one thing that we need to worry about.
I'd say so.
Truly is.
Don't drink and drink.
In that order.
Can't wait. Can't wait to hear that.
But, and first, how would you spend the last 10 minutes of your life? We're going to talk about that because
Why?
Jim Carrey wrote a book.
Did he?
It might be out. I don't know. I should research this more. But he wrote it. No, it's out. He wrote a memoir.
A memoir.
A memoir.
A memoir. That's what the kids say these days. What, a memoir?
A memoir, yeah. That's what it is.
That's what I'm my grandkids call me.
memoir.
You call it Angela. I'm Grandpa a memoir.
So is a memoir like a story of your life, essentially? Is it-
Yes.
It's like an autobiography?
Yeah, but it's a memoir / novel. So I don't know.
Oh, how does that work?
You know,
Read
So
the
it's
book.
true
there's
and not true?
Fiction in it.
Oh, that's like Daniel Nayeri's Everything Said is Untrue.
Oh yeah, but he said it was a true story. Is that the guy
Who said it was
Oh
a
no,
true-
that was like the A Million Broken Pieces.
Oh,
Or,
yeah, no. The Daniel Nayeri one's great.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I talked about that book on this podcast, so
Yeah,
you should
I
remember
remember that title, but I don't remember anything about it. It was really
Anyway.
good. So, Chris.
So the book is Memoirs and Misinformation.
Okay.
that. Memoirs. Come on.
There you go.
It's
What-
not
say-
memoirs.
Memoirs?
Memoir.
Memoirs and
Memoirs and
Oh, my word.
Memoir.
We just lost all credibility.
Memoir. I can't say that word. Okay, sorry. Memoirs and Misinformation.
Oh, yeah,
But it says it's
worst.
a novel. But so,
Okay.
so the premise of the book, and actually the book cover is his face. It was an accidental screen grab from his assistant because he was in Hawaii. I was a couple years back when the person. They sent out a national emergency that there was a missile about to hit Hawaii, and and everybody was going to die. And so for 10 minutes, people thought life is over. Like we're about to die. They couldn't run anywhere because they're in Hawaii. They can't fly out fast enough. Whatever. So basically, like missiles coming, we're going to die. So his assistant called him and he said she lived across the island and was like, what should we do? And like in the conversation, she took a screen grab of his face. And so the cover is his face of what he
what
thinks.
does it look like? Is he concerned?
It's like
Yeah, he just looks flabbergasted.
yeah, like
Flabbergasted. That's a good word to.
So flabbergasted. Yeah. So
Like, that's what he should make.
yeah. So I want to play this little clip. It's from the Graham Norton show, and this is. Don't you make it full screen?
No. Yeah,
Well,
you
there's
make full screen.
nothing more telling of your worldview than if you know you're going to die.
Yeah. And
That's
so
true.
on this
What you
podcast,
do.
we talk about worldview and just the media and stuff. And so this was one of the things. So, yeah. So what you're going to do when you're going to die says a lot about your worldview.
It's true. Let's hear it.
So we're going to play just a little bit of this clip.
A segment.
Time of the last 10 minutes thinking she said, should we get in the car? Should we all try to meet up? And I said, I don't want to die in my car. And then I sat down and this overwhelming sense of peace came over me. And I started to go through a list of gratitude for my life, for everything that had happened. And about 2 minutes left to go, I thought I'll just close my eyes. And then I got the information that it wasn't real. But I know what it's going to be like
Jeez.
in the last 10 minutes. if I was to know that it was going to end. So it's a kind of a unique place to be, you know, to be able to sit back and go, okay, there's actually a state of calm.
And tell me this.
Okay, so and then he said he was actually mad that it wasn't real because he's like, I made peace with myself. So
Interesting.
yeah, and I know there's been like talk about Jim Carrey being a Christian. Like there's been some things, but I don't think that he is. Like he said some things.
I feel like if he were, that would have come out in that moment.
So the gratitude thing is an interesting place because I think you've talked about that on here before, Adrian, about like there's a place of gratitude that like it changes perspective on life. And so for him to sit there in the last 10 minutes and just be like, he said, I was calm and I just thought about what I was thankful for.
Yeah.
And to be at that place. So yeah, we can talk about this in just a second, but what about you guys? Like how do you think, and this is a hard question because we don't really know.
Yeah.
Or do we? What that would be like in the last.
If you knew you had 10 minutes.
Yeah, if we got an emergency alert saying, "Hey, there's a bomb coming," like you're not going to be able to get out of the blast radius in 10 minutes. So what's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully I'd be close to my family. I think this question comes up for me every time I'm on an airplane because I'm like, what if I find out that this plane is going down? Like, what am I going to try to do? But it usually involves me like scrambling to write out something on my phone.
Yeah.
Like, so that if my phone is found, there's messages to people or something. But like, I think I would just gather my family and hopefully, I honestly think we would probably just like hug and pray until it was over.
What was the song they played on the Titanic because it was sinking?
I don't know the name of it.
It was a hymn. It was an old hymn.
Oh, was it? God Save the Queen? I don't know what it was called. It's interesting with Jim Carrey because it's like he had a near-death experience, but it was fake. A fake near-death experience.
Yeah.
But he thought, nearer my God to thee is what they sing.
Yeah, basically God Save the Queen.
I'm probably singing Amazing Grace because we know the lyrics to that one better.
I only know like 2 verses out of that.
Because I don't be singing nearer my God to thee like, what's the next line? And then we're trying to look it up and then, just be a
I'd
bad
probably
way to go.
sing, if I was going to think about singing the like, great is thy faithfulness, maybe.
Well, so
He loves.
So with this, I think there is something interesting. It ties back to what we were talking about in the last episode with this idea of meditation and staring at a wall. I think because he's like, okay, I only have 10 minutes, because there's a couple questions that I heard Tony Robbins, which is like a public speaker, he's like a motivational speaker, give, and he said it can really help your life. He said 3 questions. Are you focusing on what you can control or what you can't control? Are you focusing on the things you do have or the things you don't have? And are you focusing on the past, the present, or the future? And those 3 questions, if you are focusing on the present, you're focusing on the things you do have and the things you do control, then a lot of times you can almost be at peace. You can be fully in the moment and you can be thinking about all the things that are good in life, all the things that you're grateful for. And you're not thinking about tomorrow, you're not worried about, and you're not kind of reminiscing on the bad things of the past. Yeah. So I think, not necessarily from worldview perspective, but I think that's kind of what he was experiencing in that moment.
I'm here in the present. Okay, yeah, because you can't. I mean, but he's focusing on his past in the sense of like, here's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah. So gratitude in that sense,
but in light of what is happening in the present.
Correct.
Like, I'm about to die, so I'm not going to try to go find shelter or cover or anything like that because there's no point in 10 minutes. And so, I don't know. Yeah, for me, I would definitely like find my family. I'd be with my family and probably pray and sing or something. I don't know, it's a sad thing to think of. Like,
well, I'm just curious, like Jim Carrey, and why he didn't call somebody. Like if Hawaii was the only one that was gonna be, like he was gonna be gone, like why wouldn't he call somebody like in another location?
And say, hey,
and like let them know kind of his last goodbyes.
Well, so it's interesting with kind of, because I think with these quote unquote near death experiences, a lot of times, which this is not what Jim Carrey did, but a lot of times people that don't even necessarily believe in the Christian worldview, like people that would be atheists, they real quick start like, if there is a God out there, let me get right with you real quick as the plane's going down. Like a lot of people will quote unquote convert in kind of these near death experiences, but it didn't seem like that was kind of the case for him.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, and I know he's like been through a lot with his mental state, just because he kind of went off the deep end there for a little while. But I think he's kind of come to peace, like, and I think through meditation stuff, what we talked about last week. And so I think it's hard for him maybe to see that, like, I need something else beyond myself, because and I don't know if I know he said stuff about being a believer and stuff, and maybe has gone back on that. I don't know, but I think he has like kind of a mystic, ish.
Well, that's kind of what it felt like. And I was having a conversation with our lead pastor Brett, and funny enough, we were kind of talking about Star Wars and Kung Fu Panda, and then the difference between that and kind of the Christian worldview is a lot of these things, or when someone says they're spiritual but they don't believe in God, they believe that there's a spiritual realm or spiritual things, but the difference between that and a Christian worldview is the Christian worldview believes that those spiritual things are personal. There's a personal God.
And knowable. Yeah, a lot of times people think like, oh, well, I know there's something else out there, but I can't touch it or feel it, or it doesn't compute into my brain, so I can't even comprehend it, so not even...
Exactly. So it seems like a lot of times with the Eastern stuff, it's more about being kind of one with the energy, one with the universe, one with yourself, and being at peace with that, rather than the spiritual saying, hey, there is a noble God who is personal that I can have a relationship with.
Yeah, and so I don't know his mindset, but it is interesting that you pointed that out, that he didn't call anybody, and maybe he texted people, but he didn't say that in the story. And so, so is he such a loner now? Because I feel like he's kind of been outed a little bit in Hollywood, just because he is very much calling them out and being like, this is such a different world than what is real. And like, I mean, because the Chris Rock slap thing that happened with Will Smith like 2 years ago or whatever, like he was livid about that. Like he was just like, I can't believe this. Like this is where we're at as a society of like, we're so elite and all this stuff that you get offended by a joke and walk up and think that you have some kind of righteous thing to slap this guy in the face over a joke. And then he's like, because Chris Rock wasn't suing or whatever, and Jim Carrey's like, I would definitely sue. He's like, this is ridiculous. There's no accountability, and we're put up on these pedestals as actors, and nobody thinks that like we're touchable in some way. And he's like, and this is an example of that. And so he was pretty upset about that. And he's even like on talk shows and stuff, like he'll just say like, yeah, you're done. Like, I mean, he just calls people out on things and just doesn't. He's done with the Hollywood lifestyle, seemingly, and all that stuff.
But I think it is interesting, that kind of shift then, to point out, he didn't call anyone or anything like that. And I think part of that, if he is more in kind of the Eastern meditation, that kind of thing, I think one of their goals is to kind of rid yourself of all desires, where you are kind of at peace, where you don't need anything or anyone. You can just sit there. And that's why, monks will, like in the Kung Fu Panda movies, they said how you become enlightened, you have to go to a cave and then sit there for 30 years. Yeah. And without any, basically any wants or any desires. And so if you can kind of be in that moment, he's like, I don't need to call anyone. I don't need anything else. I can just be at peace where I am right now.
Yeah. And I do want to make a comment. Somebody commented last week on our video of one of our shorts about because we were talking about the practice of meditation, Eastern meditation stuff, and then the person was like, "No, you're talking about filling yourself with these other things." They're like, "That's New Age talk," and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." So thanks for correcting us on that, but there is like this combination in the West of Eastern practices with New Age stuff, and it's kind of this like, oh, I'm emptying myself, but I'm filling it with gratitude, those kind of things. And not that gratitude is New Age stuff, but
so. On the other podcast that I am a part of,
Adrian's on so many podcasts,
channel stuff like that. No, we're talking about liturgies and
the Statue of Liturgy.
Yes. You guys always ruin everything. Serious. I try to talk about.
Okay. Right.
So what is a liturgy for all the people that don't know it?
It is translated as order of service. Okay. But also is the practice of things that we do, and that can it can be like a liturgical service. It's literally like the order of the service that you're going to. But you can apply that to your own life of like, what are the rhythms, the daily rhythms that I have that are transforming me, because the order of service is supposed to walk you through like a transformational spiritual process. And so that can translate into, you can apply that to anything. It's like, what am I doing? What are my daily rhythms that are forming who I am? And if you have, these spiritual practices, I think it's like when pressure is applied to you, it's like that's when all of those things start to show if those practices are healthy or unhealthy or what you go to. So it's almost like Jim Carrey, I did look up and it says that he pulls from all religions. So
there's a lot of people that do that. It's like, there's truth everywhere. I can kind of just take all of them.
Well, they're just curating. So it seems like one of his, like, if that is the end of his life, that pressure is being completely applied to him at that moment. It's like, all right, what are the things that I've been putting into my mind and practicing that is going to come out? And it looks like, well, gratitude is not an unhealthy place. Like that seems seemingly healthy.
Yeah.
Like, is it lonely, or like we know that there's a God of the universe that we probably would be in conversation with in those moments. Well,
the practice of all the different meditation stuff is interesting, because Russell Brand was kind of that way of like, oh, everything's kind of good, and like I can learn from this and this, and then he's like, oh wait, Jesus is the way. And so it was interesting, like watching his journey, because he's now a follower of Jesus. And
well, because I think what that people start to realize, people on those journeys, is like, it's more transactional than you think. Because you are like emptying yourself. What's filling that back up? Something's going to, and there's just so many things where it's like, so we've been like, are we going to move into the Harry Potter? We kind of already have, like, Harry Potter, Kung Fu Panda, Star Wars, like these. Is it Eastern religion, or just like, there's different gods all over, different energies, chakras, like all those sort of things. It's like tapping into the universe. Like, what I believe is that it's kind of like in the ancient times, there's these transactional things, like these gods and demons and energies do exist, and we've kind of become either unaware of them or like flippant about them. But in ancient times, they required sacrifices, like blood sacrifices, like, we're going to take your kid, or or we're like your firstborn, or do these crazy things. And then people are like, something's still missing, so I have to like keep doing more and more. And it's really like, you get sucked into this cycle of, I'm trying to fill myself up with the wrong thing. And what's being required of me is more of a sacrifice than I realize. But Jesus is the opposite of that, of saying, follow me.
I sacrificed for you.
Yes.
So you don't have to.
I am that blood sacrifice. And so you don't have to do that. And you can fill yourself with me.
Yeah. And so, I mean, going back to the gratitude thing, I think when we get to that place of fulfillment, we are grateful to the Lord for what he's done, and not like, oh, I'm grateful for these cool things that happened in my life, but it's like, oh, this is how the Lord has transformed me into this person. But 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 18, rejoice always. That's 16. Memorize that. It's really easy. 17, pray continually. Very easy. You can memorize 2 verses right there. Rejoice always, pray continually, and then give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And so, just giving thanks in all circumstances. Like, my life's about to end, I can give thanks. And so, and it's not a like, oh, thanks that I'm dying, but it's like okay, here's how the Lord has brought me to this place. And so
this I think is kind of tangential to what we're talking about, but I was listening to something, because I think the idea of pulling from a lot of different religions, and I think because I had gone to a wedding, and it was the first kind of Christian wedding where it's not like so it's the verbiage that they used basically all the same language that a Christian wedding would use, except they didn't use the word God. And I was listening to a podcast, and the quote said something like, people appreciate the fruit, but they disregard or don't even believe in the tree itself. And I think in the West, a lot of times that's what's happening is these things that even like people that are naturalistic or atheistic, they believe in things like gratitude and love and believe there's right and wrong and that kind of thing. But they don't draw that back to where does that actually come from? What worldview does that come from? And is my worldview even compatible with those things? And I think a lot of people are searching and saying, well, I'm all good with love and gratitude and right and wrong to some degree, but I'm not going to believe in God. I'm not going to believe in the Christian God.
Yeah.
So
they feel like they can take it themselves, and like, I've been having a conversation with a friend who found herself in a crystal shop, and it literally is like manifesting the fruits of the spirit through crystals.
Yeah. What?
And it's like, it's kind of when you think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really silly. But there are people who like take those things really seriously, and that's like their whole career. But it's like, I'm going to take this for myself and manifest it by having this crystal in my home. I'm going to like bring about friendship and community in my life or something because I have this. And again, it's like all the stuff that you have to do. Whereas again, what you're saying about the fruit is like, if we're actually pursuing God instead of ourselves, then that fruit naturally happens because that's what the Lord blesses us with.
Supernaturally.
Adrian, what if I told you crystals work? There was this episode of Bob's Burgers, a little bit of a twist, but they were talking about crystals.
This is convincing me already.
And yes, no.
Bob's Burgers.
Bob's Burgers. So I thought it was the stupidest show around. It is kind of stupid, but it's pretty funny too. But so in the story, Tina, which is the teenage daughter, she gets this crystal, and I forget where she gets it from, but she's convinced that this is helping her do like all these cool things. And then word gets around the school that, hey, she's got a crystal that can basically help you with any problem you have. So then she starts loaning it out. And then people start getting crazy. Like, I need that crystal. I have this math test coming up. I need to climb the rope in gym class. I need to do all these things. And I forget exactly how the story goes, but essentially she ends up giving them something that's not the crystal, and they think it's the crystal, and then something really good happens, and they're like, oh, it works. And then they find out that it wasn't actually the crystal at all.
Hey, let's take that back to Harry Potter.
It was our friends along the way.
Yeah, it was the friendship we gained along the way. But I think a lot of times there's a quote that says, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right. And I think a lot of times just having a confidence or a belief in something will almost give it the power, not in like an objective power, but you'll see things go better if you believe. It's like the placebo effect.
Yeah.
You can take medicine and actually, if you believe the medicine is going to work, then it can actually heal your body, even though there was nothing in the medicine that did it.
Crazy.
So it's kind of your brain that does it.
Well, in Harry Potter, they give Ron liquid luck.
Oh yeah.
For Quidditch, and he does really well.
Yeah.
But then then somebody like calls him out, and they're like, "Actually, we didn't put it in there. We just said we did."
But because he believed it did, then it gave them confidence to actually do it. So the placebo effect is surprisingly effective in a lot of different things.
It is.
Which is weird.
And that's why people think that those things
What's
work.
the worldview of a placebo effect?
Wow.
I can't even do that right now. I'm not equipped for that.
All right, so I've got a question because Adrian and I have a story about the last 10 minutes of our life because so growing up went to, hey, I got the Camp Leanna shirt on right here. So
Nice.
so we were there.
Things go down.
And I was a counselor and you were a student or a camper. And I think was I in college? No. Yeah, probably. So I was in college, and the speaker for campfire night didn't show up, and so my good buddy Mark was giving the message around the campfire. He just started talking because the guy that was supposed to wasn't there. Then this guy just comes screaming out of like running. And why me? And he comes running up, and he's like, why? And everybody's like, what? And they're kind of laughing at him. And he's like, this isn't funny. He's like, I just got word that there's a nuke coming, and we've got 5 minutes left to live. You're about to die, and people are like, what? And then he's like, these planes have been flying over because it's near an army base. And so there's all week, like he's like, we've been at camp, but he's like, there's been like tensions between China and America, and they've sent nukes our way, and we sent nukes their way. It's like, this is it. You got 5 minutes left to live. Wow. And then he like proceeds to tell other weird stories and all this stuff. But it's like,
he does not let it go.
Oh like, no, he's in character the whole time, like screaming. But so by the end, most everybody was like sobbing. There were a couple people that weren't.
Oh my
people coming to the leaders like, is this true? I'm like, I don't think so, but I don't really know because he didn't tell anybody that he was doing this. And then he's like, well, if you don't know Jesus, you need to come down. It's like, let's not scare people into.
So this was the ultimate form of scare them into.
This is the guy would be like, it was the 90s.
Yeah,
this is how we got people saved.
This is the early 2000s if I was in college. So but I just remember like that was not a great way to share the gospel. I think maybe then I was like, oh, that was great. But then I'm like,
that was great.
But as I
that
thought
really
about
made us think.
Yeah. But then it's like, okay, there's different ways to do that than like to actually scare people into thinking they'll never see their families again and all this stuff.
Yeah, like formative youths.
So were you one of the people crying? Because there were a lot of people crying.
You know what? As much as I cry, I was not.
She was not convinced.
Were you convinced or?
I don't have, like, I remember that for sure. And I remember thinking, I think I actually, like, had a watch or something. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just watch. And I'll know if he's lying or not if the 5 minutes run out.
Oh, and they did run out because he went for, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And I think I was just observing, as I told you guys beforehand. It's like when I found out I was an Enneagram 9, but I didn't know what the Enneagram like didn't exist back then. But just like
she wrote it based on that experience.
Not being able to,
I'm the peacemaker.
Not being able to like the part of an unhealthy 9 is like not being able to make a decision because you're observing like both sides all the time.
Oh, I'm a 9.
And
I'm learning so many things.
So like I feel like I was like watching. I was just watching. So I was like, okay, are some of the leaders acting like they know what's going on? Or like, look at these campers that are completely falling apart right now. Like I was just watching and I don't remember feeling something one way or the other.
Those were Enneagram 6s. They were crazy. No, the ones that are always
crying and
things are going to be terrible and thinking of the worst case scenarios.
It's the end of the world. I knew it.
But I do remember going back to the dorm after that and like just people were crying in their beds. Like I thought that was real and
they are all in therapy.
Well, it just made all these kids homesick.
Oh yeah, they're like, I want to
stay
now.
Go home.
It was the last night of camp. So.
Okay.
Was it the last night?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because that's also the same night we took this kid out there and scared them again to thinking they were about to die.
Oh my goodness.
And then he passed out on the way back.
You said he passed away.
He almost did. He
that was a rough night for that kid.
Speaking of rough nights, do you have a Florida foible?
Florida! Yeah. This comes from the great state of Florida, and even better, a Burger King employee. So,
nice.
Yeah. So, what happened was there's this guy that when you go to the drive-thru now, they don't give you your food anymore. They tell you, pull around to the spot. I don't know what happened to fast food. It's not so fast anymore. But so this guy is sitting there and waiting for his order, and then this guy comes out. Like it says, he came out several times to bring his food and stuff, but then he's like didn't get a drink, so he asked about his drink order, and then this guy Garcia. It says the victim said he asked about a drink order, and that's when Garcia became irate, according to an arrest affidavit. And so he started punching the car and like getting mad. And
wait, the workers punching the car?
Yeah, because this guy didn't. And so I don't know if the guy in the car was mean towards him, but he said he just asked about a drink order, and the guy started punching his car and getting all mad. And then this is a great quote.
Oh yeah,
Garcia allegedly yelled at the police to take me to jail, threw his shoes, and moved his hands around in an aggressive manner. So Jimmy, let me see you move your hands around in an aggressive manner. Oh man,
he's like,
is he punch in the air like take me to jail?
This is aggressive. I don't know. Yeah. So he moved his hands around in aggressive.
I imagine like the three Stooges where they're like, boink.
Yeah.
Poke there. He like, it's like,
that's aggressive. Like a slapping motion. But yeah, so
Jimmy wasn't born yet.
No.
He was like,
Jimmy, the Three Stooges are great. But he was actually drinking. So
Not his drink that he was supposed
drunk.
to be brought.
So
please tell me there's a
don't drink
police
and drink.
quote.
It was
That
just
was the
waving
quote.
his hand,
That was the quote.
aggressive, waving his hands in an aggressive manner.
So if you guys are SpongeBob fans, you would know this is actually the exact script of the Krusty Krab pizza episode. Because have you seen the Krusty Krab pizza episode?
No.
Oh my goodness! For all our young listeners out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because
Three Stooges.
SpongeBob
Three Stooges.
and Squidward, they start selling pizzas at the Krusty Krab, and they're going to go deliver this pizza, and they like run out of gas, and they were going to deliver the pizza, and then they are like walking for like so long, like they're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like this long drawn out thing, and then they finally get there. SpongeBob takes it up because they were super hungry, and SpongeBob's like, "This is for the customer. We can't eat the pizza." And Squidward's like, "Who cares about the customer?" But finally, they get there, and he knocks on the door, and SpongeBob gives him the pizza, and the guy's like, "Where's my drink?" He's like, he looks at the card. He's like, "What drink?" He's like, "My Diet Dr. Kelp." He's like, "I can't eat this without my drink." And then SpongeBob is just like broken. He's like crying. He just walks back. It has the pizza. And then Squidward, he takes the pizza, and then he just takes the pizza and smacks the guy in the face with it.
Oh.
And
Nice.
then he goes back to SpongeBob, and he's like, "Did he eat it?" He's like, "He ate it all in one bite." So this is exactly what happens.
This is art imitating life. Life
Yes.
imitating art.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
See, now you guys are a little bit more educated on
We
things
are.
that were.
Things that
Thank
are
you.
young.
So yeah, okay. Well, we've hit on this a little bit already, like the Harry Potter and all that stuff. But I want to continue that conversation because you talked about your friend having the crystal, like she found herself in a crystal shop because she was taking a friend and they were hanging out, and then the friend was like, "Hey, I need to go to this place," and she's like, "What do I do in this situation?" And so, I want to just delve into some of the topics because we watched Kung Fu Panda 4 with our kids recently. I didn't finish it. You didn't finish it either.
I finished it.
You watched 1 through 4, but there
Very
is
good.
this Eastern like kind of spirit realm and the spirit thing, and then Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like there's a spirit realm, and you kind of get into that with some Japanese stuff and some Eastern mysticism. There's like this spirit world that operates kind of in tandem with our world, and so and we can we both affect one another in those things. But Harry Potter, people have like trouble with that because there's like witchcraft in it. But you're like, okay, but you also watch Avatar. Is that
It's not witchcraft.
Not blue people, but yeah, the Last Airbender. And so, and so in Kung Fu Panda, like you let your kids watch that, but then you have problems with Harry Potter. But Harry Potter is not okay. But Lord of the Rings and Lion Witch and Wardrobe, those are okay because that witchcraft is
Written by
different
Christians.
witchcraft. Yeah,
It's Christian craft.
which J.R.R.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
That's J.K. Rowling.
J.R.R. Rowling.
J.K.K. Rowling said she came out as a Christian shortly after the Harry Potter books, and people are like, "Wow, why are you just now saying this and all this?" But she's like, "Because I was afraid that people would guess the ending because I am a Christian," and she's like, "I put Bible verses in there. I put like different things." And I was like, and when I went back and looked at it from a Christian perspective, I was like, "Wow!" Like it really was eye opening. It was a really cool perspective to look at it through that lens. But I also went to like the Harry Potter like midnight release or whatever at Barnes and Noble. I don't know if
The
you're
book
that one.
releases.
Yeah, and they would have like tea leaf readings and stuff. Like they were pretend, but at the same time, you're like, it's a little bit weird. Like,
Well, because I think there
they
is.
predicted my future, and here I am.
And you're going to be on
One day
podcast
you're gonna
episode
be on a
54.
podcast
54
about this.
episodes in, talking about this exact moment. You're like, what? No, so because I think there are people that have totally different approaches to it. So, and especially if you have kids, if you're a parent and you have kids, there's some people that anything that looks like it's even non-Christian, nevertheless, anything that looks quote unquote bad, they just totally stay away from. And a lot of times they don't give them reasons either. It's like, we don't watch that. We can't watch that. It's bad. And that's kind of the extent of it.
And that's how, my wife grew up like that, because it was like her mom was like, I have a feeling about this. I'm like, okay, but that doesn't help me to make any of these decisions. And her mom was mostly right. Which is like Britney Spears and like some Sesame Street stuff. Like there was just different things.
Britney out of this.
Smurfs.
The key is, I believe, walking with somebody through it. Yeah. So you may have like a bad feeling about it, but like that might be fine and well, like that you can listen to those things. I believe the Spirit gives us those promptings, but
discernment, it's a spiritual gift. But.
Yeah. We can also like look into it as well and be like, I didn't feel good about this. I looked into it. It doesn't mean you have to consume it, but like, Google it, or whatever, and be like, hey, and tell your kids, like, I don't want you to necessarily engage with this yet because there are some things that you don't understand or whatever, and just like let your kids be a part of that process. Yeah. But if there is like something like Harry Potter, like I remember I was reading Harry Potter, like our parents were like
deep into witchcraft.
Yeah.
So much witchcraft.
No, it was more, I think they were curious too before Judgment. And our dad ended up really liking them. Like he didn't read them, but he watched the movies and really liked them. But I took the book.
He has that lightning bolt tattoo on his head.
I took a book to a family gathering, and
uncle, I don't want to say who, but
my uncle just went off. And it was like, what's more effective in my faith journey? Like somebody yelling at me and making me feel really ashamed and like, or just like dismissive of something that I'm reading, or my dad sitting down and watching the movies with me and being like, yeah, these are cool, or like maybe there's a not happy medium, because I don't think there's a middle of that, but like I like finding the truths in those things.
Yeah. And we like told, because our oldest daughter wanted to read them, and we said, not yet. And then when she got to be 10, Angela read them with her. And like, so they read through all like the whole series and stuff. And so like, so they could talk about things and all that stuff. And I know, because I have friends that are like, oh, I can't believe you read Harry Potter to your kids. Like, and like, they're very much against it, but they haven't looked into it. And that's the thing, like, that frustrates me. It's like, okay, you're just saying, oh, because there's witchcraft, it's bad. And the Bible does say the Lord hates witchcraft. The Lord abhors witchcraft.
Abhors?
So that's probably King James, but yeah. And so you're like, okay, but if he hates it, then why is the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe where there's a witch in it?
And a wardrobe,
but
for that
she
matter.
represents evil. That's
yes. So does Lord
Voldemort.
Don't say his name.
They don't.
Jeez.
Are you trying to curse our podcast?
You're giving power to something that should not have power. That's the thing, is like there is this hierarchy, as we believe that there's this hierarchy of order of like God, humans, angels, like demons, like these power. And so we can claim, because we are with Christ, like we can claim power and authority over these other things. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, and we shouldn't like play with them, but there's no fear in that, but we shouldn't engage with.
Would you do a Ouija board with your kids, Chris?
I mean, no.
That's what I'm saying, is like, that's like, they're playing with that. Where it's like,
what if you play the Harry Potter PlayStation 2 game?
So, well, there's that new one. But the reason, like the Harry Potter thing, I think here's how I justified it, is that they didn't choose. They're not like, oh, I'm going to be a witch now. I'm going to be a wizard. Like, it wasn't that. It was, you're born into it kind of thing. And so
to me, that crosses the realm of fantasy, like Lord of the Rings. And I know it took place in the real world, but you still know that it's fantasy.
Yeah, because this is a group of people that I can't be a part of. Like, it's in the other.
Well, there's a magical beasts and things like that, where so like you are bringing it you're just marrying like the real world and fantasy, but they are fantasy books. And like throughout all of history, there are fantasy and fairy tales, and that is how people were taught how like virtues and like creatively experiencing truth through other things than the Bible.
Yeah, and so because Percy Jackson's another one that like it's like, oh, they're Greek. Was it Greek?
Yeah,
gods are they're real and they're operating like in the spiritual world and all that stuff. And that one I thought was actually more harmful because it's like, no, these are real beings and entities that are like they're operating in our world, and I don't know that we could be a part of it necessarily, but it's like, oh, these things are happening around us. And so that one felt a little more like, oh, this is this is real, like kind of thing, you know? Whereas like the witchcraft stuff, like it was interesting how she dealt with a lot of the things, because like the potions class and stuff like that, but there was like I don't know, it kind of got into dark magic, but not really. And so
and it was like a clear distinction of
good and evil,
and a lot of it had to do with, again, what I think is a truth, is like your motivation behind your actions.
Yeah.
And so some of those, like, your motivations are good or evil, and that's what determines if it's good or evil. And
I think with stuff like that, as followers of Jesus, we need to know what's going on in the culture. And that was a huge cultural thing at the time. And I mean, actually, it still is. There's an HBO show coming out soon, with Harry Potter. They're rebooting it. Yeah. And so it's still out there. Like, another
that
video
new game
came out like last year or whatever, 2 years ago.
Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah. And so it's still out there. And there's still people that are like, no, it's bad. Like, okay, even if you think it's bad, have enough knowledge about it to be able to be like, oh, okay, what do you think about these things? Or instead of like, especially if somebody that's not a follower of Jesus comes up and tries to talk to you about it, and you're just like, well, it's witchcraft, and so our family doesn't participate in those things. Like, then you're automatically, what you said, like putting up a barrier, and that person now feels shame or feels guilt, and now you feel, I don't want to say irrelevant, but
you're giving power to those things.
Rings of power. Yeah.
Like, you're saying, like, we can't engage with that at all because it's evil, and there's like a underlying worldview that like it's going to do something harmful to us spiritually.
Yeah, and so it's like, this will get you.
It'll turn you evil, that kind of thing, rather than again claiming that power of spiritual authority.
Yeah.
Over those things.
And this is a good reason why we do this podcast, or why I wanted to do it, is because, we want people to start thinking through those things and to be able to gauge culture around us instead of just running from it like, the devil's in it. Like, and that doesn't mean you participate in those things. That doesn't mean you have to read it, but you can know enough about it to have conversations. And like, I mean, it's funny because Quincy is now going back and rereading them. And I think yesterday, we had a conversation about like kind of good and evil, and like, and because she was like, you said she was a Christian, and I was like, do you see any themes in there? And like, we talked about that a little bit, like just some of the Christian themes that are in those books and all that stuff. And so, the whole series is about us coming to terms with that we are sinful people, and we have to die to that part of ourselves in order to truly live. And like, once I realized that, like, because it's the very end, I was like, like it just, when I found out that she was a Christian and I looked at it through that lens, I was like, oh man, it is the story of like, we're born into corruption and sin. And
I think people were picking up on those right away. There was some, a friend of mine, her dad was like a pastor, and he was like very against them. But so she asked him like, will you read them instead of like just all this. So he read them, and then he started preaching about them because he was like, kind of like the Finding God in Harry Potter. Like the gospel is clearly present in Harry Potter, and like Yeah. So
It's in a lot of things. And so we got to end here because there's we got to end here because there's more stuff to do.
So many things to do.
So many things. But I wanted to touch on Dungeons and Dragons real quick because that's
you've talked about that.
It's the most controversial one.
Yeah. That short keeps coming up. Like people are like, I can't believe
Hellfire Club.
Yeah. And so because Dungeons and Dragons was something that we like, at least I grew up thinking like, this is bad, this is wrong, this is not good, and all that stuff. And then I went to a Love Thy Nerd convention. And it was actually before this. I struggled with it because my friends wanted to play, and I was like, it sounds like a lot of fun. And so I was kind of looking into it some, but there was an article, I think it was Christianity Today, like put out an article about it. I'll try to link it in the show notes. We don't have show notes, but like on the, if I remember.
Somewhere.
In the like whatever the description section. But it was a great article, and there's this guy like that talked about it and how he kind of wrestled with it. But there were like misinformation about the satanic panic or whatever they called it and stuff. There's all these things that was kind of like, Dungeons and Dragons is bad because these people killed themselves over it and all this stuff. And there was that chick track.
The chick track?
Yeah, they're like, it was like, this girl's into swords and sorcery or something. And they like, I don't know, she's like kills herself because her character dies and she's in this dark place. And so there's all these things around it that people are like, this is evil and bad. But then as you get into it, you're like, this is like the battle of good and evil. Like there are demons in it, but like, they're bad. Like you're trying to kill evil, and like you're a team of good people that are like doing good in the world, and you're there to rescue and all that stuff. And so I do play it, and then our library has it on Thursdays, and so now my daughter and I are starting playing at the library.
Kung Fu Panda's not corrupting the youth. Chris is.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Kung Fu Panda.
We kind of did. It was kind of the mysticism, and how do we approach? So, as kind of closing thoughts, so how, as parents, or even for yourself, how do you approach things that you either have a bad feeling about or you've heard bad things about?
Yeah, for that one, I mean, it was a matter of prayer, and it was a matter of looking into it of like, okay, and even like talking to our dungeon master, our DM, because like before the campaign, like everybody was like, here's what I'm comfortable with and not comfortable with, because I don't want to sacrifice to other gods, and I don't want because the thing about a role playing game is you can do whatever you want in it, just like you can in real life, and so it's like, okay, in that world, I don't want those things to be a part of what we're doing. Like even like I don't want to deal with that stuff because I don't deal with it here. I don't want to.
Yeah, and well, like even Christian books, like we were talking about Narnia, like there are, and I've talked about this before. There are gods in some of the Narnia books. In Prince Caspian, there's some gods in there, and Amos was like, why they talk about gods, like, and we kind of had to navigate that a little bit. But then there's things like, I'm going to get canceled, but turning red.
You're getting canceled right now.
We watched it as a family, unknowingly, like what happened.
Us too.
And so, like, it went over Amos's head, but he wants to watch it again.
Yep.
And I told him no, and so now he is adamant.
Now he's turning red.
Yeah, he's like, why can't I watch this? Why can't I watch this? And I'm like, well, when we watch it together as a family, just explaining, like there are some things in there that you may not understand yet, and I just think it'd be better to wait until you're older and we can watch it again so that we can talk about it. And he doesn't like that answer, but I hope and trust that he will appreciate that once he's older.
Yeah. And I mean, because I have a 13-year-old in the house who wants to watch Stranger Things and some like more deeper.
Like our Dungeons and Dragons club. That's what I'm talking about.
That's a gateway drug.
I gotta play that, and so it's almost like, well, we want you to watch other things to desensitize you first before you watch this, which is like, this is a terrible way to parent or live. But
I have a whole conversation about that. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, but there's certain things that we're like, okay, we want this to be, there's things that we don't want you to watch yet because you are still innocent in some of these things, and we don't want you to be scared, and we don't want all that. And like, it's not that we think that she's a baby or anything like that, but it's like we want to help you to make wise choices in what you watch. And
I think it has a lot to do, like, thinking about the way that you talk about it, because there, again, a friend of mine and I were having this very conversation of her kids wanting to watch they're wanting to watch Star Wars, but they're really young. And so she's like, I know that it's going to like scare them. And she's like, so what we've had to
Yoda.
talk about is she was like, I would much rather ingrain in them that like there are scary things in this world, but you like equipping them to understanding, like instead of desensitizing them to scary things and letting them work the build their way up.
Yeah.
It's more doing the positive thinking of ingraining in them that God has power over all of darkness. Like he has authority over all of that. So when you are lying in your bed scared at night, you can say verses or just like those things of like, my God is stronger.
God is bigger than
God's bigger than the boogeyman. And like ingraining that in them. So when they do encounter scary things, that it's okay to be scared of things. Like, but what you don't want is them to not be scared of anything.
Yeah, that's
like
why I dress up in a creepy clown mask and hide in her closet at night and breathe heavy.
You want to be scared of stuff.
I mean, that's when Chris scared me my whole life.
I did. I scared a lot. All right, we're going to talk about that another time. But
still can't go in my closet
parents,
now.
Scare your children.
That's the takeaway.
No, but I think that's a good point. Like God is bigger than those things, and we need to teach that. And we instead of like running away in fear, and there are things in culture that we do need to stay away from and stuff like that. But there are websites like pluggedin.com, this podcast, and things like that you can have mature conversations with them instead of just like it's bad. And so like helping them to think through those things, because what you're doing is equipping yourself and your kids or friends even like, hey, there are things that as followers of Jesus we shouldn't partake in, but we can still have conversations and still be friends and still have mature conversations.
Something about our listeners who aren't parents and like, I feel like we've kind of alienated that little viewership of like, here's how you deal with parents. But like, as a believer myself of like experiencing scary things or what I participate in, I still have to use that lens. And sometimes it is that discernment. Like I'll be watching something and I will get like a gross, I call it a gross feeling. And I'm like, why am I feeling this? Like I need to maybe stop this and explore that. And so it's kind of like paying attention and not just blindly consuming everything.
Right.
And I do believe as you're growing in your faith and like God says we'll grow in our holiness and righteousness, like things will come out more and we'll be more, almost get more sensitive to it rather than, it's like the opposite of desensitizing ourselves.
Resensitizing.
Yeah, it really is.
Resensitize.
Reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Hey, everybody. We gotta get out of here. Yeah. I'm Chris.
I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jimmy.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on, I guess, Worldview Finder.
Episode 54.